On the morning of May 10, 2025, India and Pakistan were hours away from a nuclear exchange. It took a last-minute, U.S.-brokered ceasefire to pull both nations back, halting the escalation just before the countdown reached zero. The path to that cliff edge began 18 days earlier in the Baisadan Valley. 5 militants intercepted a group of tourists near Pahalgam, systematically segregated them by their religious identity, and executed 26 people at close range. When Indian intelligence produced evidence linking the attackers to handlers across the border, New Delhi did not respond with a typical diplomatic protest. Instead, the government declared that the era of strategic restraint was over. The Pahalgam attack forced a change in how India approached its neighbor. What began as a localized tragedy became the catalyst for a multi-domain war that targeted the very systems Pakistan needs to function as a state. The first domain was resource warfare. Just one day after the attack, India suspended the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty, a pact that had governed river sharing through 3 major wars. This data shows the economic weight of that decision. Pakistan relies on the Indus River system for 93% of its total water usage. More importantly, 80% of the country's agricultural irrigation depends entirely on these flows. The physical mechanism of this pressure was the Baglihar Dam. By closing the gates on the Chenab River, India effectively choked off the water supply to the Punjab and Sindh provinces, targeting the foundation of Pakistan's agricultural GDP. By treating river flow as a weapon, India demonstrated that it could cripple an adversary's domestic stability without a traditional ground invasion. The second domain, precision air warfare, commenced May 6th. Under Operation Sindoor, the Indian Air Force launched a series of coordinated strikes against 9 terror launch pads located deep inside Pakistani territory. To bypass Pakistan's air defense network, India utilized a specific combination of hardware: Su-30 jets firing supersonic BrahMos missiles, and Rafales deploying long-range scalp munitions. The goal was to hit command centers while remaining outside the range of return fire. On May 7th, the conflict escalated into the largest aerial battle the region had seen in over 50 years. This tactical radar map plots over 125 fighter jets engaged in high-speed, beyond visual range combat across the international border. Operation Sindoor established that deep penetration strikes could be executed even under the threat of nuclear escalation, aiming to prove that proxy groups would no longer be safe behind the border. Pakistan, unable to match India's conventional air power, pivoted to a third domain, asymmetric and cyber warfare. They codenamed their response Operation Bunyan-un-Marsoos. First, Pakistan launched over 600 drones to map gaps in India's air defenses. While drones occupied the military, a synchronized cyber attack targeted civilian infrastructure. Malware disabled 70% of India's northern grid, blinding cities and paralyzing railway networks. Pakistan's counteroffensive showed that a conventionally smaller military could bypass a superior air force, targeting the civilian arteries of a nation directly. The May 10th ceasefire, brokered here at the White House, ended the physical combat. But while the missiles stopped flying, the new mechanisms of the war remained in place. Jump forward to May 2026. What were originally seen as emergency measures have now become the standard operating procedure for both nations. India continues to keep the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, using water access as a permanent strategic lever. Simultaneously, Pakistan has integrated offensive cyber units and Chinese surveillance technology as a constant, active layer of its defense. This shift suggests that the traditional boundaries of nuclear deterrence have changed. For these two states, the space between absolute peace and total war is no longer a temporary crisis. It is the theater where they now operate every day. The result is a state of perpetual calibrated conflict. In this environment, security is no longer based on a passive ceasefire, but on the daily capability to hold an adversary's power grid, water supply, and